What is up? Alright, so this is a little bit more lo-fi today. Hopefully that's okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a book that I picked up at the thrift store a few weeks ago, and just kind of stood out as a pretty interesting example of how cosmology, enclosed cosmology, starts to just open your eyes to a number of things here. So obviously the book is called Sacred Architecture, so I was just perusing through the book section, and just couldn't believe how pretty much every page that I looked at basically was talking about cosmology. This is written by a guy obviously coming from a very esoteric mindset. He's very sympathetic towards the mystery school religions and everything, so it's you got the Tower of Babel here. He's talking about sacred, he talks about sacred geometry and just so much in here. Let's see what we got. Oh, look, we got the School of Athens. We got sacred geometry. This is interesting. This is a diagram of the Book of Beerfirth. I don't know how to say that. Showing the relationship between the four elements, the cardinal directions, and the signs of the zodiac. Interesting. And there's, of course, the Platonic solids that are used in sacred architecture. Talking about gematria, sacred numerology. There's the Parthenon, the Acropolis, talking about the Golden Mean. I mean, on and on and on. Early cosmologies and the cosmic cube. Oh, look, this is interesting. You got a picture. This is the creation by Joseph and Jean Fouquet. It shows God with a compass and angels with T-squares and surveying instruments. Look at that. But it talks about squaring the circle, actually. So this is interesting here. The unusual movements of the Earth's axis is a central factor in many of the early mythologies, described by images such as a mill grinding on its axis, a wheel of fortune, the wheel of karma, or the churning of dairy products in the Milky Way. The ancients also likened the world to an egg surrounded by an Ouroboros snake, symbolizing time. D13 just put out an awesome video on the Ouroboros, by the way. The spiraling of Earth's polar axis is expressed in many creation myths. In the Aztec culture, its axis is a fire stick. In Scandinavian myths, it is Amlodi's spinning top. And Egyptian stone carvings depict Horus and Set in the act of drilling, thereby creating the gods of the Nile. Indeed, the Nile was often represented by the Egyptians as a circle, where its source and mouth meet like an Ouroboros. The mill relates common mythological themes to the movements of the cosmos above, a central heritage of ancient philosophy. Coincidentally, the spiraling millstone and its cap containing hieroglyphs look like human sperm containing DNA. The central element of the mill is the pillar which grinds out reality, and the mill tree is the axis around which the world itself is created. The form of the mill is central to the structure of Eastern temples, as described in the famous books of the East, such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Similar symbolism is illustrated in Mayan codices and architectural friezes depicting churning objects which look like hourglasses. Now, how crazy is that now in conjunction with the whole toroidal electromagnetic concept, the world tree concept, which it actually talks about the world tree as well. But right here, okay, so there's the Vitruvian Man, which is an occult symbol, by the way, if you didn't know that. Da Vinci's. Anyways, square chamber and circular dome. This is really interesting. bear with me. In investigating ancient versions of universal structure, it is characteristic that the two geometrical shapes which predominate are the square and the circle. It is through the reconciliation of these two primary shapes that the essence of sacred architecture emerges. Right? The square does not exist in nature, it's created by the human mind, dreamed and constructed by us. The circle is godlike and indicative of wholeness. The symbolic relationship between square and circle is that of the human and the divine, right? As above, so below. So total Gnostic philosophy, once again. Human and divine. Physical world and spiritual world, imperfect and perfect qualities. The integration of square and circle is a metaphor for the equilibrium between earth and heaven. It's crazy how this comes back to so much with enclosed cosmology, and I have the four corners and the circle of the earth, and somehow they have these two things going on, right? Anyways, the square depicts four cardinal directions in material space on its periphery, while the circle focuses upon its timeless center. Man has been represented astride both the square and the circle, as shown in Figure 45, the Vitruvian Man. The early chamber-type universe, which is enclosed cosmology, depicts the Earth as a mountain, the base of which floats upon the ocean. Beyond is a high range of mountains, which form walls bounding the enclosure of the earthly plane. The ceiling is either domed or vaulted and rests on the walls at strategic points, or it is a flat slab suspended above the Earth's surface. So, infinite plane people, there you go. The firmament is sometimes supported by the world mountain. The heavens are the floor of the celestial realm above, and humanity is understood as having descended from the intersection of heaven and earth. Well, that's, from the Gnostic point of view. In early cultures after megalithic times, the place of prayer was a small cube with a hemispheric cupola above. Whatever the religion, the form is the same. One can see such buildings all over the Mediterranean, in Greece, Turkey, Egypt, Italy, and across Eastern Europe and Central Asia. The Temple of Temenos is a protected place, circumscribed and separated from the mundane world by augurs, a microcosm of the world as it was pictured in those times, depicting the cubic world in the hemispherical heaven. The word templum means place from which stellar observations are made. It is also related to the Hebrew word tabernacle, which means a tent. In early Christian cosmology, the universe was likened to a chamber, a cubic box with the lid of the heavens surmounting it. Either the entire box was seen to revolve or just the lid. The center of revolution was the constellation of the Great Bear, which was worshipped for its stability. Well, not by the Christians. Instead of moving like other constellations, it appears to simply rotate. To this day, the followers of Alice Bailey's Science of the Seven Rays invoke the seven stars of the Great Bear when making their invocation. The heavens were made of either metal or crystal with holes to allow the celestial light to penetrate. The planets rose through an eastern hole, traversed the sky, and disappeared through a corresponding western hole, only to return after passing through the subterranean world beneath. And then it talks about this. This is the Temple of Asclepios, and here you go, the dome of the Kaiseriani monastery in Greece. So again, you have the motif of the circular dome and square building. Anyways, it just goes on and on. But the point is that it's just talking about how so many of these elements, like right here, this is a depiction of a kiva, which was from the Native Americans of the Southwest, or which was like kind of a dugout thing where they would have their shamanic ceremonies. But again, the idea is that it's a microcosm. You see, you got the four posts and the circular. There's a hole in the top, and of course, this is shamanic again. But whether it's temples in Egypt or the Pantheon of Greece, and there's a picture of Babylon again. It just goes on and on and on. Okay, here, look, you got the world tree, the Nordic mythology. That's a cross section of Stonehenge. Going on and on about temples and stupas of Buddhism in the Middle East, or Hinduism. All these things. So there's some Buddhist statues. It's amazing how, looking back through, I would have been interested in this stuff, if you, over the past few years, I would have found it intriguing, but it would have just, for the most part, been just a lot of kind of perplexing symbolism and mythology and all these things. But now, looking at it from the standpoint, the guy who wrote this, he believes in space, he believes in the globe, he doesn't believe that these ancient cosmologies have any truth in them. He believes in the spiritual side of them, so he's still looking at it as all more esoteric symbolism, which is of course layered with in all these different shamanic and mystery school kinds of backgrounds. Here's all the mounds of England and Europe. But when you're looking at this through an enclosed cosmological perspective, well, it's with the idea of astronomical alignment and with equinoxes and all these things, the various constellations. Of course, you got Stonehenge. It talks a lot about Stonehenge, and then the Mayans, and on and on and on. So here we got squaring the circle. Right here, it's actually talking about the process of squaring the circle, which was used to orient buildings where you start with the circle here, where you put a pole, and then using the shadows of the sun, you would get you'd get a line from east to west, and then by subscribing circles around from those, and there's the Novus Episcus, and then when you do it again, you get four corners to do a point. That's basically how they would use the sun to square the circle, to orient the temples. And again, when we look at all these things from a cosmological perspective, being both referring to the spiritual dimensions, but also connecting to the physical plane, it's crazy how sense it starts to make. Mandalas. Oh my gosh, when you get into mandalas, it gets very interesting. They said the stupas is talking about the world mountain, Mount Meru, like every temple basically being a representation of the world mountain, which of course the fallen angels in the demonic realm understand and have incorporated in all these false belief systems, because it's all about trying to evolve and emerge and gain enlightenment up through the various stages. But it's all reflected in the architecture. So anyhow, I'm not sure how interesting this is to even listen to, but the whole point is that there is so much to be said about just how the mystery schools and all the stuff that has just captivated so many people, especially as they get into questioning the world around them, and in the truth movement, and their eyes are open to so many types of deception, and then they get lured into ancient spirituality and all these ancient, the perennial philosophy concept, and it's everywhere. And through understanding, this has been one of the craziest things about getting into the whole flat earth thing and biblical cosmology, is realizing just how, look at this. I mean, everything is just cosmology everywhere you look, in terms of the gods holding up the sky and the zodiac and all this, and just understanding that these ancient gods really did come from the stars, right? But if we understand what the stars, or at least have a better understanding of what they're all about, and that they're not millions of miles away, or millions of light years and billions of light years away. They're right overhead, but they're also, it is the spiritual realm, the celestial realm. The circle over the square, and that's what they're trying to do, is bridge that difference outside of the resurrection, outside of the way that God enabled us to reach heaven once again. But